In the previous episode of Dragon Ball Z, we learned about the Book of Cards, the Wild Card, the Book of Books, the Magic Coin, and the Chess Key. Now today, we're talking about Season 22 and all of the balance changes. All of these magic items will be available in Clash Royale. It's Season 22, Pekka's Playhouse. We have an ancient Pekka statue helmet thing. And then we have the Book of Books. Do you buy that in the shop or does it come default? I don't know. Pretty straightforward stuff. The Pekka Tower is going to be kind of like a metallic-y gray with a lava mouth in the front. Then on the back, it's kind of spiky ladders. Then you look at the King Tower. I feel like I wish that was kind of gray as well, just to keep with the color scheme. But hey, I still think it looks pretty cool. Now, before we get into that, this video is sponsored by the latest The Walking Dead Survivors mobile game. Do you have what it takes to lead a community through the world of The Walking Dead? Can you handle wave after wave of walkers while you scavenge for supplies and find other survivors? The Walking Dead Survivors is the ultimate survival strategy game where you'll need to build and fortify the base from the rubble and defend your camp against the never-ending onslaught of walker attacks. Once your camp is set up, scour the radio waves to find other survivors and recruit them to be part of your army. You're going to need a lot of survivors to fortify your defenses and keep your base well protected. Follow along the game storyline, which is based on the Walking Dead comics, where you'll cross paths with iconic characters like Michonne, Rick, and Glenn. R.I.P. Glenn. But be wary, the walkers aren't the only threat. You'll be competing against other players as well, so make sure to pre-register now to get a head start. Thanks to The Walking Dead Survivors for sponsoring this video. Again, check out the link in the description down below to pre-register. The Mother Witch is getting a buff. Her damage is increasing by 14% from 96 to 110. Her hit speed is increasing 0.1 second faster, so her DPS is going from 80 to 100. That's 25% more DPS. So that kind of results in one more hit to the tower. This is a very significant interaction change because she can now one-shot spear goblins, convert them into piggies immediately. It may not seem like much, but side by side, if you can convert those spear goblins immediately, it's going to deal a lot more damage to the tower in this perfect case scenario. Another significant interaction is that she'll now be able to two-shot a guard shield instead of three-shotting it. That's going to be a little bit more of a difference. You can see the interaction where it's one-on-one and she summons two piggies on the new buff. It's very minor, but on a macro scale of interaction, a lot of things are going to die a little bit quicker now, just with their slightly faster DPS. The bomber's getting a rework. Elixir are reduced from 3 to 2, but the stats are going down 32%. Now, what's interesting is that the bomber will now die to arrows. It won't die to the log. So from a macro interaction scale, almost all mid-sized units will be able to tank 2 extra shots from the bomber because it's a little bit weaker, 32% weaker. Ice Wizard will now be able to tank 1 extra shot. The Ice Wizard will die in 4 hits now instead of 3 hits, which is enough to take a shot on the tower if you need to. So that means that E-barbs will now be able to tank 6 total shots instead of the regular 4 shots. That's a bit of an interaction change if you're trying to pull them, and completely different interaction against the tower. Bomber lives on the right, your tower dies on the left. One thing too with this damage reduction is that it no longer one-shots the shield off of guards and Dark Prince. That means one-on-one, the bomber will take a little hit from the guards. The bomber now will no longer one-shot Princess, Dark Goblin, Rascal Girls, anything that's loggable. It's kind of a significant interaction for the Rascals because they will survive long enough to run out of range against the bomber, and they will survive. That's a completely different interaction of surviving and counterattacking versus the old bomber being able to cross the river. So that's all the micro interactions. Obviously, the bomber is going to lose against all these different interactions because its stats got reduced by 32%. But I don't really talk about macro interactions that much on this channel. And with elixir reduction from 3 to 2, you're going to be able to put this in fast cycle decks. It's going to make sense in golem decks without having to sacrifice anything else, as well as making all these other decks really fast cycle. These are just interactions that it didn't kill. It's going to take out goblins. It's going to take out skeletons. All of the ground units that you're going to be able to splash for the cost of 2 elixir. This is an insane buff in my opinion. So the bomber and the wall breakers now cost 2 elixir, and they both have 275 health. It's going to die to Knight, Barbarian, Princess, and Electro Wizard in 2 shots now. The Knight has been really problematic in a lot of decks, so they're nerfing the health by 5% from 1452 to 1380. In terms of macro interactions, it's going to take one less hit to kill the knight for pretty much everything except for the P.E.K.K.A. The P.E.K.K.A. will still take 3 shots to kill the knight. That's a very important thing to know. The most significant interaction is that it's now going to die in 2 shots to the hunter instead of 3 shots. This means that the hunter will be able to cross the bridge in that very specific case where you put the knight on top of the hunter. Terrible placement. E-barbs are getting a slight buff, 0.1 second hit speed. That's a little bit faster. That means the DPS is increasing from 212 to 227. That's a 7% DPS buff. Left ignored, it does get a couple more hits. It may not seem like much, but imagine those moments where it gets 1 more swing and that's 300 more damage. The hunter's getting a bit of a nerf, but not to any visible stats. Its load time, meaning its first attack, is going to go from 0.7 to 1.1 seconds. So every time it has to retarget onto something else, it's going to be a little bit slower. But if it's locked onto a giant, nothing changes. Against the Hog Rider, the interaction's still going to be relatively the same. Right off the bat versus the tower, it's still going to get 2 shots in the tower. Load time is the time it takes to retarget onto something else. When you pit it against the balloon, it's still going to take out the balloon. 3 Musketeers are back. They no longer have a 2-second deploy time. It's going to be 1 second. Same thing with the Zappies. They're getting a slight nerf as well. Their first hit speed is going to be slowed from 0.9 seconds to 1.1 second. It only affects their attack in the beginning. So in terms of retargeting onto skeletons, they're going to struggle just a little bit more. The witch's range is increasing by 0.5. It means she'll be able to connect to things a little bit faster. She'll be able to take on minion horde just a little bit further. They're restoring her glory because she wasn't used that much. The cannon cart is going to be an interesting one. They're reducing the movement speed from fast to medium. So it was a really strong counterattacker. It was a little hard to defend, but now a little bit slower, just a little bit. Now you can't really bridge spam it as effectively. It's gonna connect on the tower a little bit more slow. That means it's gonna get 1 less hit on the tower. So even with a sliver of health, it would still connect to the princess tower, just completely taking it out. Now that it's got a medium move speed, that sliver of health will not connect to the tower. That's a huge interaction change. Overall, I've been told this will actually help beat down decks like golems and everything else, because it's still going to be behind there doing massive damage, just sniping everything away. In fact, it might even be a little bit better in those situations because it's slower and it helps you build up for a bigger push. The cannon cart's a little bit harder to kite, but with the slow move speed of the ice golem, it's gonna be a little bit easier to pull off. The heal spirit's returning to its former glory with 91 damage, back to its previous damage, so it'll deal more damage, but the healing circle is going to be a lot smaller. It will be able to kill bats and skeletons now, but a lot less of it because of the smaller radius. With its damage back up to 91, with Zap Spell, they will take out minion. The balloon's death damage is being decreased by 27%. From 272 down to 199. For those important connections that mattered, it's going to take a little bit longer. With this reduction in damage, the interactions change a little bit. It'll no longer be able to kill princess or the archers. Interestingly enough, it's still enough to take out the guard shield at exactly 199. Now we have the bomb tower. Death damage minus 50% from 369 to 184. It kind of bothers me that it's not 199 with the balloon, but it is what it is. With this massively reduced damage, all the minions, loggable units like Dark Goblin and Archers and Princess do not die to the bomb anymore. And it's at a very strange number. At 184 damage, it doesn't take out the guard shields. Last but not least, we have the giant skeleton, and its punches being 28% bigger, so 222 damage. Basically, their message is that they felt that it reduced the skill cap of competitive play, and it was a universal defensive card that you put down, and it just defends everything, especially in 7 times or 2v2. With its extra punch, it's gonna deal a lot of damage. All of the fireballies are gonna die in 3 punches now. Zappies and Magic Archer are going to die in 2 punches now. This is pretty significant for Zappies. Instead of 9 hits, it's 6 total hits now. And of course, the most significant interaction, it 1 punches all the log units like Rascal Girls, Dark Goblin, and the Princess now. In terms of its death damage, it's not even that big of a deal anymore. it's only going to deal 444 damage. But because it packs more of a punch, it's actually very similar damage to the Princess Tower left alone. With its death damage, it will no longer kill fireballies. This includes musketeers, mega minions, all the wizards, the electro dragon, night witch, witch, bandit, fisherman, hunter, cannon cart, and baby dragon, but it will still kill skeleton dragons, zappies, and magic archer. That's all of the balance changes we have for the month. It's gonna completely change the meta. It's something that we've been waiting for. I want to give a huge shout out to 1 HP Dex, Jaunt, Smurf, Milo, Ezra, Endirian, and Novolite for helping with all the balance interactions. This has been a wild ride. That's it for this video. Hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you everyone for using code OJ. I'll see y'all next time.